Hello, everybody. Welcome to Tuesday and our new episode of Hackster Café, which makes it my favorite day of the week. And this week we are talking with Caeley Looney of Reinvented Magazine. Good morning. How's it going?
Good morning. Well, it's like afternoon here because it's
Oh,
1 o'clock,
right, yeah.
but it's
You
good. How
just
are
mentioned
you?
that. Yeah, awesome. And could you tell us what Reinvented Magazine is? This is just like one of the bajillion cool things that you do around space and science and technology and empowerment and stuff like that. But please, yeah, just we can start there.
Yeah. So Reinvented's a 501c3 nonprofit organization that's all about kind of empowering and inspiring the next generation of girls in STEM. We originally started almost 4 years ago now as a nonprofit magazine. Came out as a print magazine quarterly, has a digital version, but we print mostly to make it as accessible as possible, especially to those in like low income and rural areas where they don't get internet access steadily. And then we also have the Princesses with Powertools program, which was a new addition as of about a year and a half ago, which is exactly what it sounds like and looks like. We dress up like princesses and go to STEM events all over the country. And we have one out of country this year too, which is really cool, and teach girls how to use their first power tool.
Oh my gosh. Wait, I didn't realize it was that new because I could have sworn that I was at Detroit Maker Faire like in like 2019 maybe. And I could have sworn that I ran into like Zyla Foxland doing
Yeah.
like Princess with Okay.
So
So
it's
I'm
it's
not
not new. It is new to Reinvented. So you know
Ah.
Zyla, she started Beauty and the Bolt, which was her nonprofit that started the Princesses with Power Tools program. And now Zyla's doing like really badass. Am I allowed to say those words?
Yeah, you can see that.
Great. Now Zyla's doing like really badass stuff over in like California, running her own YouTube, making all this awesome stuff. And in doing that, she kind of gave Beauty and the Bolts, which included Princesses with Power Tools, their YouTube channel, all that stuff, over to Reinvented so that we could keep it going and kind of continue to bring the princesses to events all over the country.
That's so cool. And they're not just showing up there. You do a calendar and you're sort of teaching people how to use like your first power tool hand drill. Uh, when I did it, it was a really fun thing. It was like a coaster that you would do like a little constellation
Yeah,
drill
it's
out
it's
thing.
still that same thing. Um, it's fun because we get to ask the kids a lot of like engaging questions and questions that they know the answers to. Because I think when they usually walk up to us while they're excited about the princesses, they get really scared the moment they see the drill, which totally makes sense. A lot of them have never played with a power tool in their life, right? And so seeing something like that and knowing you're about to use a power tool is a scary thing. So we ask them things like, "Hey, what grade are you in? When's your birthday?" And then we like tell them about their zodiac sign and help them kind of like draw the constellation out onto a piece of MDF. And then they get to take that home with them after drilling all of the holes, so they have their own constellation projector, that they can use in their room at night.
I love that. What ages do you sort of cater to with this program?
Yeah, it is a mixed bag. I'm not gonna lie. The activity itself is probably most geared towards elementary and middle school girls. However, it is not like gender exclusive or age exclusive. I have had grandmothers come up with their grandkids who have been like, "Hey, I've never used a power tool. Can I try this?" And answer is always absolutely. And honestly, like they get just as excited as the little girls do. So yeah.
That is so cool. All right, so what's in the latest versions of editions of the magazine? What could people expect to see when they're sort of flipping through here?
Yeah. So I'll start with like I have it here. So issue 14 just came out in December. Our next issue will come out in March, April timeframe. But this one has Kat Exareta on the cover. She was the first Mexican-born woman to go to space with Blue Origin last year. And so each issue features interviews just like this one of a bunch of women in STEM, both from like undergrad all the way through like the C-suite level, pretty much, so that you can kind of find somebody that you resonate with within each issue. And then every issue also is like a DIY project. So this one was like how to
Ooh.
create your own like space themed API, and it like talks you through all of the coding steps and everything like that with links and QR codes so that you can access everything online. And then we have like an opportunities board that is, kind of like upcoming events. So if you want to find ways to connect with women in STEM in your community, this is a really good place to look. On the maker side of things, this was our space issue because it came out just after the Space Gala. But I think issue 13, which was right before that, has been one of my favorites. I don't know if you know Alley Cats, but they're like the most amazing person I think
I
I've
know of
ever
them.
had the honor of meeting virtually because they live on the other side of the world. But this issue was really fun because we got to do a lot of like hands-on stuff, and Allie did an article, not just her interview, but she also guest starred an article about how to get started. They guest starred an article about how to get started with LEDs, and so this whole issue was just like a ton of maker content using like really basic tools that kids can find at home. Like this one was like how to add LEDs to glue sticks and make like a glue stick arch.
Nice.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And I noticed that in the magazine also you flipped to a page that showed an ad for your your YouTube channel, which has all this cool stuff around not just tools and electronics, but also career stuff like professional branding and like communicating your needs on a team. And then also these really inspirational interviews with all kinds of different people, but also like, yeah, keeping cool during college applications, how to give constructive feedback. Like that's, kind of terrifying to lots of people because
Yeah, we actually started this channel before we kind of merged with Beauty and the Bold, and also during COVID, when we were not able to go out to events and actually meet some of our interviewees in person. And so we tried to collaborate in the virtual space, very like similar to this, right? And just get their professional advice. We were able to like stream those YouTube interviews and those panels into classrooms during COVID, and it was a ton of fun. Though I will say that since then we have merged with Beauty in the Vault, like I said, and we have also adopted their channel, which is different from our channel. It's a lot more maker content, and so we are really, really excited to be able to bring that back to life this year with more like maker projects and bringing some of the DIYs in our magazine to life on screen, and hopefully some collaborations with like other awesome female and non-binary makers.
woo, cool. So here we go, Beauty and
Yes.
the Bolt, the
There
channel.
is the one and only Zyla Foxlin who started
Yeah.
Princesses and Powertools. Yes.
An electric mandolin. Oh no. I say oh no because it's like an oh yes, but like that means that I'm gonna get distracted by that. I'm trying to do stuff later on. Oh man, I play mandolin and that thing is gorgeous. Holy crap, that is beautiful. No
Yeah,
way.
she just made a guitar as well on her personal channel now, which you should go check out. Which was like really, really cool. She went through the whole process of like when you put like the wood in the steam box thing so she could like bend it,
Right,
and
yeah.
yeah, it's like purple. It was gorgeous.
She did a bit of that for her canoe too, right? Or boat
Yeah,
thingy.
yeah.
So
She's built a couple boats.
I'm not surprised it's more than one at this point. Speaking of which, you had what am I going for here? Oh, seasons Yeatings. So we're talking about sort of the end of last year. You had the Space Gala, which I'd love to dig into as well. And it kind of ties in with us whole. I didn't even know about this until I started digging through your website. What?
Yeah, so this was something that Zyla Foxlin and Joe Barnard, who were our co-MCs at the Space Gala, did in 2022, or 2021 was the first year that they did it. While at the Space Gala, they were kind of like, I don't know if we should launch another Christmas tree again. And I was able to convince them, like on the beach the morning they were leaving from Kennedy Space Center, that like no, like you have to do this again. And like I am like hyped, like I want to come and be a part of this. And it was really, really awesome. I got to go out to California and help them like build what they ended up calling like the Christmastle, because it ended up, if you watch the video, went straight up for about 50 feet and then like went completely sideways and almost took out a cart. But it was glorious. And then they put a whole bunch of ornaments on the tree, which I think I have one here. It looked kind of like this, and ended up, selling all the ornaments that came off of the tree, stayed on the tree. We have to zip tie them so they don't all fall off all over the desert. But naturally, some did and got completely torched. I don't have any of those anymore, but they sold all of those to kind of be donated back to Reinvented after the Space Gala, which
That
was
is
really
so cool. I love that as a sort of fundraising thing, and I think sometimes it's cooler to have something that's clearly sort of battle worn, and has some
yes.
history to it.
We had quite a few people like on Zyla's live stream when she was like signing them, fighting over who was gonna get like the one that was just like burnt black.
One of my favorite parts about it, I think, is how when it launches, just like the explosion of presents around the bottom. Like, I think it's coming up here in a second. Do the thing. Ah, there we go. Just look at that. It's
Yeah.
priceless.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, yeah, it was sort of around this space gala that you did. Can you tell? I really wanted to go to that, but alas, no. But yeah, tell us what kinds of stuff do you have at a space gala when you are
Yeah.
someone who's
Reinvented has been wanting to do like an in-person women in STEM party for a really long time. We actually had initially talked to Kennedy Space Center almost 4 years ago now when our first issue came out, trying to do a like launch party. Then COVID happened and we couldn't do anything until this past year when we noticed like Kennedy was starting to do events again. We were like, okay, maybe this is the right time. And with all like the big history making that's been happening in space, especially with all of like the women in space milestones we've seen, Space Gala just kind of seemed right. And I mean, this is where I live. I live in Florida, on the Space Coast. So Kennedy Space Center is really like in Reinvented's backyard. And so it was really cool. We lit the whole rocket garden up in pink lights. And just brought together almost 200 women and some of their spouses who were brave enough to come, who I commend greatly, to kind of just party and dance the night away in a rocket garden. It was really cool to kind of create not just like this safe space for women in STEM to do something in like a pretty dress when I know most of them personally and most of them wear like PPE all day long or hard hats, and they like dressing up. I like dressing up. So this was kind of like a fun time for them to do that. So it was a safe place to do that, a fun space to do that in. And it was also really cool because COVID, a lot of us have become like friends online, and have not actually met each other in person. So this gave everyone an excuse to come together and like finally meet their internet friends. Yep, as you can kind of see from the special guest list there. So yeah, it really was just kind of like a mini dance party in the Rocket Garden.
That is so cool. And you're doing it again this year, right?
We are. This year it will be held on November 11th, which is another Saturday. And I don't think we'll be in the Rocket Garden again this year. It looks like we will be under the Space Shuttle Atlantis this year.
That is awesome. That
Yeah.
is super
We
cool.
want to make it bigger, and the Rocket Garden only holds so many people, but Atlantis is pretty huge. So we'll see. But yeah, we're really excited to be able to bring that back. It was a really fun night for everyone, except for maybe like the organizing team who like running a first year event is always chaos, but we had fun regardless.
Yeah. So let's see. You mentioned it being a safe place to sort of, dress up and do stuff. And my perception of that as someone who went to, I went to an all-girls school, and so I learned a lot of stuff about like how, different gendered spaces sort of like affect people of different genders, and how sometimes women can feel more empowered, or like they're not representing their entire gender when they're in a space that is more egalitarian, I guess, or because sometimes we get judged for well, why don't you tell me about like what that means to you?
Yeah, and this is something that I think we try to touch on a lot in the magazine as well. Is that I mean, the whole idea is to kind of reinvent the general perception of women in STEM, because when you think of women in STEM, I don't know, I think most people automatically go to tomboy, which like totally fine if that's who you are, but that's definitely not everyone. Or like what being a woman in STEM is their whole life and they don't have hobbies outside of like coding all day or whatever it is. And so a big part of what we do is try and tell everyone's stories holistically. Um, so that you see every part of their journey into STEM, every part of who they are, things that they do outside of work, all of that kind of stuff. And the Space Gala was just a really, really cool place to get to see everybody kind of doing their own thing. The biggest question that I got for the Space Gala was, what does one wear to a Space Gala?
Mm,
And yep, and I like, my answer to everyone was like, wear what you feel confident in. Wear what you want to wear, like come as you are. And that was really, really important to me, because I wanted everyone to feel safe. So we had people show up in suits. We had people show up
nice.
with 3D printed like flower crowns. We had people show up wearing LED heels, or like LED badges. People in like these ginormous gowns. Nobody was
Yes.
the same. Nobody. And it was so, so awesome to be able to see everybody showing up and like walking into this event with like all of the confidence in the world was just incredible. And it's not something that you see, when you go to a tech conference or when you walk into work every day. So it was cool.
Rad. So how does this intersect with, you've done some work with the Girl Scouts, and I think that you're still involved with them, and they do have an approach where it, similar to Reinvented, is not strictly like women or cis women or whatever. It's a lot more inclusive than that, and I know you already mentioned this a little bit, but if you'd like to share more about that.
Yeah, I was a Girl Scout my whole life, and still am technically like lifetime Girl Scouts. Growing up in Girl Scouts, they didn't really have anything for me that was STEM related until my mom stumbled upon First Robotics,
Yeah.
which, yeah, the Girl Scouts had won the Motorola grant, I guess, to fund First Robotics teams through Girl Scouts in a couple counties, and I was really lucky because my county was one of them. And so it's actually like really because of Girl Scouts and that whole program that I got into STEM myself. But since then, we've like really, really tried to make sure that we're continuing to work with the Girl Scouts because I know how influential all of those programs are. A couple years back, I actually got to sit down and do a fireside chat with Sylvia Acevedo, who's now the former CEO of Girl Scouts, but had been the CEO for a really long time and is also a former rocket scientist who brought in all of these really awesome STEM badges to Girl Scouts so that girls would have increased, I don't know if access is the right word, but exposure. Where now all
Mm.
of a sudden, I remember being a Girl Scout and wanting to like fill my entire vest with badges, but they were really all like camping or cooking and things like that. And now you can fill your entire vest with just STEM badges. And so we try really hard every time an issue comes out. We donate magazines to Girl Scout councils. We work with them directly to make sure that they have access to all of our DIY content, our calendars. We actually just partnered with the Girl Scouts at Maker Faire Tulsa last year. And so Princesses with Powertools became part of earning one of their STEM badges while they were at the fair.
Cool.
Yeah, it was so fun. So yeah, it's been really cool to kind of see where things were when I was a Girl Scout, like, in school, like whatever, 15 years ago. And now all the opportunities that like I am able to give back to girls now through the organization that I've created and like collaborating with Girl Scouts is always just so much fun.
I'd love to ask you a bit more about the 501c3 status of and what it's like to sort of to run one of those. First up, I've got to mention this really cool one-for-one program that you have where, like you mentioned, you're donating some of them to Girl Scouts groups, and then you've also got a more broad set of info on this on the website. But yeah, what's it like running a 501c3? Is this your first one, and what was that process like?
Yeah, this is my first one. Do I think I'll start another one in conjunction to this? No, it is a lot of work. Um, I think one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to nonprofit is that like you can run it on passion alone, and that definitely got me through the first year. And then I realized like how naive I was. and how much behind the scenes work like really gets done to be able to make the impact that we've had. And so it's been a huge learning curve, but worthwhile the whole time. And the One for One program truly was like one of the biggest reasons why we started the magazine. We wanted to kind of provide this kind of content to women, but we wanted to make sure this kind of content was accessible to any and all women. And so, like I said, that includes girls in rural areas who don't have laptops or internet access at home, or students who received laptops from their school during COVID because they didn't, like, their families couldn't afford that for them. And so now we're able to provide them with a print copy that shows up on their doorstep every couple of months, and continues to provide that continuous encouragement, and source of kind of inspiration for them to explore their passions in STEM, either while they're at school, on those like laptops that were provided at home, at their local libraries, all that kind of fun stuff. So yeah, but running a nonprofit is like, it's not easy. It is 100% worth it. And it is absolutely something that like I have not done alone at all since day one. We have a team of over 100 volunteers that runs Reinvented behind the scenes, and none of it would be possible without all of them.
Wow, what are your tips for coordinating volunteers? Because like, delegating stuff to people and managing people is its whole own thing.
Yeah. So like I am neurodivergent. I am actually like on the autism spectrum, and so like people is not a strength for me. And it has been such a huge learning curve. I will say that Reinvented was kind of born virtually, and then COVID happened. We stayed virtual, and now like we are very good at running things virtually, and it's allowed us to bring like really passionate people together from all over the world. We have volunteers located in India and Australia and like all of these cool places, Singapore, and most of them are in the US, but none of us are in the same time zones. And so I don't know, my biggest suggestion, especially when it comes to like the nonprofit stuff, is motivation is really key. It's really hard to keep motivation up when you're really just pinging people in a Discord channel or seeing their face on a screen. But sharing things, like we have like a whole channel that's just called Reinvented Wins, where whenever like someone from any team is succeeding at anything, reinvented or not, they can post in that channel. That's where we share like all of our impacts. So when our princesses get back from an event, we'll share like, oh, we taught 150 girls how to use a power tool today, and like 90% of them had never used one before, but they all said they're going to go home and use one again. And
I
so
love
that's
that.
that's been really like key, I think, to keeping everybody motivated and excited, even when like they can't see like that in-person impact as much as I would love for all of them to be able to see. But yeah, it running a nonprofit is impossible without like countless volunteers working behind the scenes. So I'm very grateful to all of them for bearing with me through my learning curve and through all things digital.
Absolutely. You mentioned being neurodivergent, and I noticed also you have a focus on Black History Month that you've done in the past. So it's cutting across all these different vectors of like gender, race, neurotypicality, neurodivergence, and I think it's just so cool that you're holding all of these aspects of people's identities in in consideration. And I wonder how we try to go for a balanced group here on the channel, and I wonder how you manage that, and how do you find people? How do you choose people? What are you looking for?
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, and we kind of talked about this with Space Gala, I mean, a big part of the magazine is making sure that everyone and anyone can find someone who resonates with them within that magazine. And so I mean, we're women in STEM. We know that we don't all look the same, regardless of what the outsiders think, right? And that we all don't think the same way. We're each unique in everything that we do. And so making sure we highlight all of those things is really important to us. Ultimately, I will say, it's my team. Every issue we put together a table of contents. I ask my staff writers, like, hey, who do you want to write about? Who do you think is really cool, and would make for a really great story? Or who are you, like, what are you passionate about right now? Is there a topic that I can find somebody to help, like, give you more information so you can write about something that you're excited about. And a lot of it happens naturally, or because somebody asks me to find someone who looks like this or works in this area or has advice on this issue. And so it is truly like girl driven. We focus on what our readers, our writers, other girls in STEM that we, our students who work on our team work with in school. And we ask them what they want to see in the magazine, and we go out and we try and find those people for them, or we bring in people that they already know who they want to see, amplified.
Cool. I love how you also have a ton of different, it's not even just electronics, which obviously our channel focuses on electronics. You have a big space focus, but also there's all kinds of different people. There's astronauts. I love these minifigures. You've got biologists, chemists, explorers, engineers, and their little hard hats and stuff. I admit when I first saw this geologist, I thought it was one of those like #1 finger thingies, but I guess it's like a large
No, it's
crystal.
a little rock.
And they come with these little info sheets. Look at that.
Yes, they each come with their own little like trading card. Those have been around for a while, so we're actually like, this is the last week you can get one. So if any of you watching live would like to order one, like today is the day.
My gosh.
Yeah, because if it says it's out of stock, it's out of stock now.
Wow. Is
Yeah.
this something that you did in collaboration with Lego? How did this come about?
Sort of. So we hosted an event actually the same exact day that Florida reported its first COVID case, which was terrible. But it was called the Lego Minifigure Build-a-thon. And so the idea was we we designed all of these Lego sets specifically. Like all of these are designed by our team. We found all of these pieces on like the miscellaneous Lego brick sites and like got help from Lego to find some of these things that were like not being made anymore. And we designed these from scratch. And then we brought teams of girls together in like this huge auditorium space and had like the public come and help build these Legos. And then the teams built displays to put the Legos on. And at the end of the day, we had like 5,000 minifigures built and put up on these displays that were all about like kind of like highlighting women in STEM or like communities of women in STEM. And it was really, really cool. In addition to like the STEM Expo, so as people were building minifigures, they could also like go run on a hamster wheel and make slushies or go check out like a bunch of 3D printers and all this cool stuff. And yeah, it was a ton of fun. But like I said, it was the same day that like COVID had come to Florida, which is where we are. So it was a little more chaotic than we had hoped. But all of these minifigures were designed for that event and are left over from that event. And we've been selling them since. And they are slowly, well, now they're almost gone. I have like very, like this is it.
Wow.
That's all that's left now.
Really limited stock. Ooh. Yeah. Cool. I had a question about it, but I forgot. Oh yeah. So you said like 5,000 or something of these were made. I'm curious if you saw what were the most popular like occupations for these minifigures, or did you know?
Astronauts and computer scientists, 100%.
Ah, cool.
Yep. Yeah, the astronauts are really cool because after like we posted that we like had made these sets, we had like space camps from all over the world reaching out wanting these to give to like their girls when they left space camp at the end of the week. So there are like a ton of like space campers out there who have a female astronaut hanging out on their desk somewhere.
Cool. We have a comment from the community. Would love to collab. How can I reach out? But this kind of ties into a more general question about you're doing so much cool stuff. You're a 501c3. How could people get involved? Obviously, people can donate. They can volunteer. What's up with that?
Yeah, there's like 1,000,001 things people can do because you're right. We do 1,000,001 things. Volunteering, 100%. We have a volunteer page, which is usually where we'll put like any open applications or like positions we're kind of looking for are all listed on there, broken down by team. And then we also started what we call like our general volunteer team. So that's like more flexible in like how much time you can put into the organization. As long as you're like doing one task a month, and that task is really like anything you want it to be or anything you're interested in based on whatever like all of our teams are looking for. We constantly have like new mini projects that pop up based on team ideas or ideas from our community. We are also always looking for guest writers. So if you go, I think it's like the blog tab or volunteer is still the right tab, and then scroll down to guest writers. We're always like looking for new people to help contribute to our blog because our staff writers pretty much are always working on our print magazine. But the blog is when our print writers have time, and when we get input from our community. Princesses with Powertools, also another really fun thing. If you go to that program page, we try to keep it as updated as possible on like where we'll be heading next. So we have a couple of events coming up in Florida. We'll be at like the Tampa Steam Fest for like 5 days over the course of 2 weeks. We'll be the only one I don't see on here right now is Los Angeles. But pretty much anytime you see an event in your area on here, you're welcome to reach out and like ask if you can come volunteer as a princess, because we will never turn you down. I like promise we always are in need of princesses. And yeah, you can, and the easiest thing is always, just go follow us on all of our pages, like, comment, share, just help us spread the word that we exist. What we're doing is, I think, cool. I think a lot of other people think it's cool, but I'm biased. It really does just kind of help us continue to promote all the things that we're doing in our mission.
Cool.
Specifically though, if you're looking for like a contact information, we do have a contact form that gets monitored by our team, or you can reach out to like the info at reinventedmagazine.com, and that will like get kind of directed to all of the like leadership team, so we can figure out who the right person is to get you to from there.
Perfect. I'm sure it depends on the type of collab.
Yeah.
And you can also just submit a form there. This is so cute. It's just too cool.
We have like really, really awesome like web design volunteers.
Now I want to keep my eyes out for like, there isn't like a way that you can oh, I see. There's the guest writers thing that you can like sign up for alerts, like if there's something in the Bay Area, and then I could show up.
So a while back, I had started a princess directory because I was getting so many people who were like, oh, like I need somebody in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I would get people from like Texas who would say, I don't live anywhere near Tulsa, but if you're in Texas, hit me up. I'll have to find the link. Actually, I need to find it anyway because we have all these events coming up. I need to like do our annual reach out. But I will find the link and I will share it with you. So if you'd like to share it out, that would be great. But yes, we do have something like that. I just need to find it. Cool. And probably add it to the website. So thank you for that reminder.
Yeah. So looking at all the stuff, we keep coming back to the fact that you just have so much cool stuff going on. I wanted to highlight the fact that you have a bunch of free resources as well, including like lock screen backgrounds, like inspirational stuff, but also like this women's guide to STEM, and just like a cool little thing, and free copies of a couple of different magazines, which I think these are digital copies, right?
Issues they are digital copies. If you want, like if you're an organization, like I see a comment there for like collaborations with rural schools, go to the 1-for-1 page, and I believe all the contact information for that will be there, so that we can work with you to donate print copies if that's what you're looking for.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, we're always looking to add new like schools and orgs to that list of places we're donating.
So you can just go to that application form there, I guess.
Yep. Or send an email to the info at Reinvented Magazine, and I can send you off to our her Kendall. To our one.
Love this. So before you mentioned you mentioned women in space milestones that you shared at the Space Gala. And I just, that sort of pricked up my ears, and I'm curious what your favorite ones. You said there's so much stuff going on recently, and, it's really easy to get focused on what the billionaires are doing and stuff. But I'm curious about, I haven't heard so much about like what these milestones are. What's going on that's so
Yeah,
exciting?
so funny enough, my favorite milestone is tied to the billionaire going to space. While
Hmm.
seeing Wally Funk go to space last year was like
Yeah.
everything for me. I don't know how many people like know her story, and if you don't know her story, you should go, like all of you out there, you should like immediately go research her. But
Mhm.
she was part of the Mercury 13, which pretty much was like a experimental program to send like that was all women. And it got kind of shut down by John Glenn, who did not support the idea of women going to space.
Wow.
Even though Wally Funk like completely ran in circles around this guy's like test and like physical like scores, right? Like she was just like she's crazy, she's amazing. And so it was really really awesome to see her like finally accomplish her dream of going to space after like everything that she did to train and just see her program get shut down. But other than that, we had like the first all-female spacewalk. We just had our first like female Native American woman do a spacewalk. Kat, who is on our cover of this last issue, went to space. She was the first Mexican-born woman to go. The first Egyptian-born woman also went to space this year. She's really cool. So it's been a big couple years for like women in space.
I've just realized, is this Cat Voltage on like
Yeah,
Instagram and stuff? Oh, I totally
yeah,
follow her. When you said that, it like the penny dropped. Okay,
yeah,
yeah. She's super cool.
yeah.
So you can get it digitally for about half the cost of the print magazine. So cool. And there's so many cool people who have been on this.
Yeah, it's a pretty. I like to try and keep it pretty like wide ranged. From I mean, like Kat was an astronaut. You can see like Becky and Sila and Stephanie and Ruth were all makers. Raven was a like biologist. Miria, who's in like that bottom left corner, was a paleontologist.
Wow, cool.
So everyone's kind of been pretty different.
So much different representation. We got some cosplay down here.
Yes, that one was really cool. We have a lot of cosplayers on the Reinvented team, so they were very excited about that one.
Yeah. I find that I've heard a lot of this feedback from other people and I've seen it myself where it seems like cosplay is a really fruitful area for people who don't usually see themselves in technology. It's a really accessible way for people to get into it and feel like they belong because it's like, oh, this is something that I see a lot of people like me doing and yeah, I
Yeah,
think
and
it's
that's
really
really cool
sensitive.
because like you can resonate with a character as well.
Mm,
Like you don't have to be specific to like video games or movies or TV shows or anime. Like everything and like anything is accepted
mm.
when it comes to cosplay. Like, and you can also do your own thing with a character, which I think is so cool. And I see people create like their own versions of characters you see on the screen. Um, so yeah, that, and I know like Reinvented specifically, we're constantly getting asked like, how I want to do more wearables and like all that kind of stuff, like for my costumes or 3D printing for cosplay and all this stuff. So yeah, it's definitely a huge field, and I've seen a lot of young girls get into STEM through cosplay, which is pretty cool.
Nice. You mentioned also space and computer science being really big interests among the community, based on the minifigs thing anyway. So space, computer science, cosplay, are there any other big themes that you notice being especially popular?
Space computer science. Hmm. I don't know if it's like a specific STEM theme, but I will say we also get a lot of requests for soft skills, which like I think is really important for women and has been really cool to see people like specifically asking for like salary negotiation tips.
Hmm.
And yeah, the kind of stuff that we have on our YouTube.
Yeah.
But some of that is also in the print articles as well. And so it's really awesome. Like now that we've kind of created this like kind of safe space slash community for our readers, that they're writing to us and asking us for this kind of content on how they can continue to be like empowered in their like full-time jobs or as they're getting through college and whatever it is.
That's super cool. So yeah, if people want to see more of a specific thing, then they can just reach out to you.
Yep, just send an email or fill out the contact form. We're always looking for new ideas.
Super cool. What did I have pulled up here? Oh yeah, Astro Access. So you do other stuff as well. Fancy
Yeah,
that. But
Yeah,
tell us about this program. You're an ambassador for them.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is really, really cool. So I don't think I've said this yet, but I actually like Reinvent is not my full-time job.
Hmm.
I actually like I work full-time as a
Yes.
mission analyst or space mission analyst for small satellites at L3Harris. And so like that is why space is like everything to me. Like that, like I have 2 degrees in it and work full-time in space. And so I learned about this opportunity where they're sending or they're working to kind of make space more accessible to those with disabilities. And like I said earlier, I'm neurodivergent. I am on the autism spectrum. And so I applied to fly on a zero gravity flight with them and try and help improve like what can we do to make space capsules or the zero gravity experience or everything in between more accessible to people like me. And
Yeah.
alongside me are a bunch of other ambassadors who have physical disabilities or blind, have hearing disabilities, all of that. Like there, we are a like very mixed bag. And so yeah, it was really cool. I had my flight back in November, where we did 11 parabolas, and I got to experience
11.
weightlessness. And I also did a bunch of experiments to kind of test like flight suit modifications and getting in and out of a like the harness that like Blue Origin has on their rockets, and testing like the earbuds that they use to make sure that like the noise on the flight wasn't overwhelming for me, and to make sure that like I was able to still communicate despite like my having like headphones on for noise sensitivity and all that kind of stuff. And it was also really cool because I got to make like work with zero G and their flight attendants to create kind of hand signals to let them know like, hey, like this is what it looks like when I'm stimming, or this is what it looks like when I'm starting to experience sensory overload, and here's what you do when I am experiencing that, and kind of helping them help future like autistic and neurodivergent flyers, in hopes that eventually we see someone like me go to space.
That is so cool. I keep saying that like over and over, but like, wow, yeah. Um, gosh, this is an amazing group. 11 parabolas.
Yeah.
My brain kind of got stuck on that. So how was that for you?
It was interesting and horrifying all at the same time, because it like goes against every law of physics that like you think like especially like for me, like I am very strict to a schedule. Like I don't like doing new things. I like to like I'm comfortable where I'm comfortable, and I know that. And that's how it is for a lot of it, like autistic people specifically, neurodivergent people as well. And so like that, like me being on the flight was kind of like one big experiment to see like what are my thoughts and how can I communicate what zero gravity feels like to the next person too. And it was weird. Like it like you lose like I said, all sense of like what is supposed to be right in the world while you're just kind of floating around. It was funny because everyone told me your first reaction when you go weightless is to like try and swim, and you like flail because you think it will help you, but because there's no gravity or anything around you to like affect any of that, no, that does nothing. You have to like push yourself off of walls, or you use like the handles and straps that they have to coordinate yourself. And then of course they have the flight attendants there to help you figure it out when you're like me on like the first couple parabolas and like look like a fish out of water. But yeah, it was a really, really cool experience, and now I get to continue to like document what all of that felt like and looked like for me, so that I can continue to work with this organization to make it even better, and figure out like how can we continue to improve all of this for everyone else.
Is there what kind of prep do they do for someone who like it? So, I'm personally terrified of doing
Same,
that stuff
same.
just
I
because
was
like
horrified.
yeah, and like physically my stomach is just like no. So like
Oh,
for
you're
anyone
so
so for like people who are dreaming of being astronauts but might be afraid of that kind of stuff, what kind of advice would you give them to sort of feel more at home with the idea?
Hmm. I don't know. I will say that like I was nervous the whole way through. That like I don't think that there was a good way to get that to go away. And you can only like run so far on bravery and courage. I did do a lot of prep work. So I talked through, I talked to people who had been on the flights before multiple times. I talked to the flight attendants in advance so that they could talk me through like everything that happens on the flight before like I even got close to the plane, even the same like state as the plane pretty much. And then I also like talked to other doctors who know how things like work for people like me, and things that could have been helpful. So flight suit modifications were made. Like I made sure none of the zippers were scratchy so that like that wouldn't be like a sensory overload issue that would add to everything that was going on. I added like light colored fabric. So like all of my zippers were also like padded but outlined in pink. So I had like a medications and stuff that I had in some pouches, or other like stimming tools that I had in some pouches. And it was really easy, not just for me to find, but for a flight attendant to find in case like I was stimming too much, to help me out in getting all the things that I needed. And I just made sure that I had a lot of resources like with me on the flight that would like help me calm down if like I really needed to do that. But at the end of it, like the Bravos were a ton of fun. So
Wow. Thank you. That was really in depth, and it's amazing how much different stuff, how many different options there were to help you feel more comfortable. Which actually, that alone makes me feel like, oh, there's options. It's not just like you gotta just tough it out, like you said. You can actually like work with people on it.
yeah, I mean, you can't just like stop being weightless like on the spot, right? Like,
Right.
unfortunately, like that's not how planes work. But yeah, it was like we definitely worked really hard to make sure that like there was a support system in place and people who understood and knew like what it looks like when I'm doing certain things and were like watching out for me through the whole thing. And then a lot of prep work that went in beforehand to make sure that all of the other variables were taken care of. Like I said, like that I had earbuds that were noise filtering, so I could like hear people talk, but it was muffled. And if that was too much, I had a pair of backup earbuds that I didn't use, but were noise canceling that like would eliminate all sounds because the plane is like a gutted out 727. So like the wall between, or like there is not much to dampen the noise of the engines. So it is louder than your normal plane, which was like a concern for me. In addition to like how would the flight suit feel in 0G, or especially during hyper G or high G. So the plane goes up, kind of like it does a parabola, so it goes up, and when it's going up, like you feel extra G's, so it's kind of like a big weighted blanket, like keeping you nice and comfy. And it was interesting because I'm the only one that I've heard of that likes high G more than 0G, because it was like a big weighted blanket, and like I don't know. So the plane goes up, and then you like go over the pole is what they say, and then you come back down, and that's like the free fall part is when you experience the zero gravity, and then they do it again. So yeah.
So that's about how it was made more comfortable for you to be in space. So does any of that translate over to when you're running events, or do you are there specific procedures and stuff? I know that sometimes places have sensory rooms where people can go and kind of like chill out. Do you have any advice for people who are running events to make them more inclusive?
Yeah, sensor rooms are huge, or at least creating quiet spaces has been like a huge help for me, and that's something that I haven't seen done all that often at too many like big tech events. So those are definitely really helpful. I also have a service dog who he was here. He ran away. He probably went to the front window. But creating like service dog guidelines and rules, and making sure they're well known to your attendees, because you would be maybe you wouldn't be shocked, but I'm always shocked by how many people don't know how to react or act around a service dog at events. And just making sure like things like where your service dog can go to the bathroom is like outlined on your map of your event is like little things that are really helpful. And then I also just like in general like keep an eye out for the fact that like everyone is different, and when you host events you can't poll everyone pretty much ahead of time for things that they need accessibility wise. So making sure your music is not really loud constantly. Your speaker system comes on every time with like this huge booming voice that like always scares the crap out of me. And then also making sure that you like never use like what are they called, like strobe lights. Halloween was really
Yeah.
hard for me this year because I had a couple of neighbors that decided to use strobe lights as part of their Halloween decorations. And I've seen some like tech conferences who get like really into like their main stage shows and stuff, and I'm all for the enthusiasm and the excitement. But they very rarely consider the fact that those lights are not only like epileptic non-friendly, but they're also not friendly for people like me who have those kinds of sensory issues, just don't have seizures as a result.
Yeah. One thing that I've also seen that I really liked was having like wristbands or badge labels that sort of show
Seen those, like
your desire for interaction.
those are really cool too. I have never actually seen one of those like at an event that I've been to, but I have seen those on like Twitter and stuff, and those look like really cool. I also like the
Yeah.
idea of those in stores, which is I think where I first saw them was like I am like don't need help, or I do like I would like you to ask me for help if
Right,
I
like different colored baskets or whatever,
basket.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, so in one of your bios, I can't actually find it right now, but it you just have this incredible variety of activities and societies that you've been involved in, like Key Club International, captain of science Olympiads, captain of Vex robotics team, but then also all this music stuff, like you were a section leader and in a marching band and like first chair oboist in wind ensemble and like all this and award-winning Olympics of the Visual Arts Architecture team. What even is that? That sounds awesome. But also just like first chair oboist. So, often when people, speaking of soft skills and like things that help people get ahead in their careers, often young people are given this advice to sort of do as many like extracurriculars as possible and try to excel in different ways. What are your tips for people for young people who want to maybe have certain passions and also want to make sure that they're setting themselves up for their future? Yeah, because it seems like you have so many things you're interested in. It's super cool.
Yeah, so I will say I was definitely one of those like crazy ambitious high school students. I'm not sure that I loved every minute of it, but I am really glad like for all of the experiences and things that I got to try out. What I will say, and like one thing that I do regret completely, is that once I made the decision that like engineering was what I wanted to do, a lot of that stuff dropped off. When I got to college, everything was engineering centric. Like I stopped with the music, I stopped with art, I stopped with and I was still volunteering with SWE and everything, but everything was just engineering, engineering, engineering. And it felt like this hole in my heart. Like I felt like I had lost a huge part of who I was, and all of these things that I had loved doing in high school simply because I didn't think that engineering and anything else mixed together. And so I think my biggest piece of advice is if you are passionate about more than one thing, that is totally okay and totally normal, and you should keep both passions. You shouldn't, let yourself be defined by what someone else is telling you, or someone else's kind of thoughts on how you should be living your life. If you really love making music and you really love playing with an Arduino, like these are not mutually exclusive things. They're things that you can and should do like for all of your life and should not like feel ever forced to give up as one or the other starts to get more serious. And it's been really cool. Like since Princesses with Powertools, I've gotten to like, or I've been, I don't know if forced is the right word, but I was certainly like coerced into learning how to use power tools because it would be embarrassing if I ran this program and didn't know how to use a power tool, right? But I'm an analyst full time, so like my computer over here is like my power tool, not hand drills and miter saws and stuff. But it was really cool like getting to start playing with all those things again so that like I felt worthy of the princess program, which is probably not necessary. I know, and I love the princesses now, but I got to like refine my love for art and fashion too, through all of that and kind of learning, especially how STEM and art really go together. I'm musically singing in the shower is about as far like back as I got. Learning how to pick up an oboe again, I don't think is something that the learning curve will allow after all these years. But the art stuff, I was really happy to be able to like bring back into my life after so long.
I love that. And we still get to, do things for fun and not have
Yeah.
to for everything. But just since we bring it up, of course, there's lots of ways to combine music and electronics, and I want to point out that Hackster has this whole section of cool music hacks. So like, I want to hear what an oboe would sound like if you could somehow electrify it and put it through a guitar pedal or whatever, or like combine it with like I don't know. I'm sure people who have done interesting stuff with like wind instruments and this stuff. I've seen electronic things that like play rubber chickens as an instrument, and someone's making like there's these sort of death whistles, they're called. They're shaped like skulls and they make this horrible screaming sound, but someone's making like an organ out of those, and there's all kinds of interesting stuff. So if people want to continue their interest in both music and electronics, there's plenty of space for you.
Oh yeah, the one thing I have learned since starting this magazine is like if you are looking to combine STEM and anything else, there is always a way to do it. Always.
Oh, yeah.
And there's probably many of people out there already working at that intersection, regardless of how like obscure it seems to you. So yeah, it's just like a Google search away to find this kind of stuff. But now I really want to put together like a music and tech themed DIY for our magazine. So might have to follow up with you on that one.
Yes. Oh, well, then I have to plug our upcoming Hangout and Nerd Out. We're coming to the end of the thing, so I'm like, oh, yes, opportunities to plug things. But we have this on Thursday, our 5th Hangout and Nerd Out session, which is a collaboration between Make and Hackster and Make magazine. Another cool thing. But our upcoming episode is about music, and we got some cool people, including MC Frontalot and Thea Flowers, who is the amazing creator of a bunch of electronic PCBs for modular synthesizers and such. But anyway, plug over. But this has been so cool. We're almost at the end of our session here, and I want to make sure that we get to show people your profiles and how to get involved again. Everyone, they're in the description below. But we've got Caeley's Twitter, Reinvented Twitter, of course, the One for One program, and reinventedmagazine.com in general. Go get your free resources. Go get your digital copies and such. Go get your other ones. Sign up to be an Astro Access ambassador. That is so cool. And your YouTube channel. I hadn't actually dug through this before, but there's so much cool stuff on there, especially the like you were talking about, the sort of career stuff that often is not as emphasized when it's just like talking about. Some people think it's just like a pipeline problem, but there's so much about culture that needs to change as well, and like just making people feel more prepared about what to expect in the professional world, I think, is very important.
Yeah, 100%.
Ooh, we have a question. What are your favorite products in the STEM market?
That is a great question. Honestly, like I don't know if I have like a specific product. My two like things that I've been really interested in lately, and it constantly changes, but I've gotten like really into like resin projects. So all things Total Boat has been like a big thing for me. And then I've also been doing like a lot of like wearables. So I'm working, Becky actually put out a DIY on like a like light up tiara, and so I like kind of went off on my own a little bit and used like that template to put it on like a real tiara. And so like we've been trying to get our princesses to do this kind of thing with the NeoPixels and stuff. So playing with NeoPixels has been another like thing I've just been, I don't know, excited about lately.
Oh my gosh.
Your question about specific like products in the STEM market is about as generic as it gets, but
yeah, but I didn't even realize that you were making stuff like that. That is so cool. Oh, we could do a whole other session on like what kinds of wearables and stuff you're making. I love it. Which of course ties in with the Princess with Powertools as well, but like, and the cosplay and everything else. NeoPixels are so good. And you mentioned before, did you mention the Circuit Playground Express? No, that's a different thing I was editing this morning. Sorry. But yeah, NeoPixels, super cool way to get into LEDs. And as you mentioned, Becky Stern has a tutorial about how to do an LED tiara. Is that in a previous issue of the magazine?
It's not. I don't think it is. I'll have to look. I know she wrote it for Adafruit, and we work with them a lot to like pull their DIYs into our issue when like we think they make sense for our audience. And that was when I think I found right around the Space Gala, because we were going to have all of our princesses there wearing these tiaras. And then, my Astro Access flight actually got bumped up to the weekend, the week right before the Space Gala. So I did not have any time to help my princesses make their light up tiaras. And they all went home with a goodie bag of like NeoPixels and soldering irons. And it was probably the most unique gift bag anyone has ever received from a party.
I love it.
But yeah, so maybe that'll be like one of our future YouTube things where we'll bring Becky in and help all of our princesses make light up tiaras.
Cool. Well, everyone, you can still go find the magazine article. I'm getting hypnotized by this, where Becky and Ruth Amos and a couple of other people are in the issue. There's definitely some back issues on here. Where is it?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, there's a
magazine bundles or magazine somethings.
Magazines and bundles. There we go.
Yeah.
And she's in this issue, 9th issue, along with a few of our other favorite people, Stephanie GG and Zyla. What a cool crew. And apparently Becky put together this image herself. We interviewed her a while back and she mentioned it.
Yeah. I think our team has since like done a lot with Photoshop. But this was like still back when our team was like just starting to learn how to use things outside of Canva. And so Becky was like, yeah, I got you. And I'm like, this is badass.
Everyone in this is so badass. It's just sort of like the main keyword about your magazine as far as I'm concerned. You've got a DIY smart mirror tutorial, all kinds of cool stuff. And then you're also donating one to people who might not have access otherwise, which is just so cool. Caeley, thank you so much for joining us. This has been such a pleasure. I'm glad we finally got to do it.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great rest of your day, whatever time it is for you, and hack on.